I have no patience for tall tales about phantom ships. Go and entertain the drunken rebel with that nonsense. The traffic controller's reaction was met by confusion from Koval. All the freighter captain was asking for was if anyone knew where he could thank the crew of the vessel that guided them out, and almost certainly save them from being thrown deeper into the treacherous currents of the local protostar rings. But once he gave the description of the ship, he was met with disbelief and scorn. The bartender laughed out loud, or at least that was what it sounded like. Some species had rather confusing vocalizations, but the tone and what was said next checked out. Seems like you have met a local legend, friend. What did you say it looked like? Old-style radiator wings in the shape of a cross at the fore? A long neck separating it from its thrusters at the aft? What you described is an ancient human design. I thought the Union vacated this area long ago. I said human, not Union. That type of ship was already old when the GTU was founded. There are entire books written about that class of ship, and how it became a symbol of vigilantism and defiance against your own government at some point. Ah, this was about politics. That would explain some of the reactions he and his crewmen got while asking around. Koval nodded, but then the more he thought about it, the less sense it made. I hesitate to ask why, then. We just wanted to thank the people who led us out of that vortex. We were warned, of course, but I could have never imagined just how volatile this area of space was. Aye, Lacteria is a young star yet to be properly born, and a cruel mistress. Nobody would have dared to set up shop around her if not for the large deposits of exomatter. Of course, their existence is what is responsible for the anomalies. Some concentration of nebula gas shooting out of the rings without warning, magnetic storms, or worse. As for the people you were looking for, forget it. While there is still a small human settlement deeper in the rings, they keep to themselves. And the ship in question, they would deny if it was really theirs. Not to mention that it might be something else entirely. Something else? The captain grimaced with what signaled confusion, but quickly reminded himself to control his facial muscles, as many saw the showing of teeth as a threat. Look for an old rat in the back if you want to hear the tale. He will talk your ears off. All four of them if you buy him a meal and a drink. Koval suppressed the need to correct the bartender about the protrusions on his head not being his ears, but a sign of being a mature male of his kind. Some of the crew decided to find better things to do, like going back and helping their technicians, despite their insistence that anyone else was just in the way. But the captain and some of the British crew were still intrigued. It was not hard to find the one described as an old rat. Various rodent analogues were about the most common among mammalian sapients, and Scifi were the most numerous, even among them. But there was only one person for whom the description was fitting. The large rat, who looked like a botched diploma project for taxidermy, was sitting in the shadow of a booth with burned-out lights. Mismatched eyes, where one was obviously a bionic replacement, or just glasses, but you could not necessarily tell which, staring into nothing in particular. Whiskers twitched, and bony clawed fingers clutched an empty, cracked cup as the captain and his officers approached. If you're looking for whispers about the latest uptake in dangerous contraband, keep walking. I already told the rest of the poor pigs that I know nothing. I have been out of that business for ages. Koval and his first looked at each other. Perhaps this was a bad idea, but they already got the box with the stew. To them it looked and smelt like something straight out of a recycling unit for toxic biowaste. The bartender reassured them that it was all they would need to win the old rodent over. Would have been a waste to just throw it out after paying for it, unless this was some kind of prank in bad taste. The captain decided to play it safe. We got this delivery for you from the front. The barman said to bring it over, if we are already coming here to ask if you can help us identify. A sighting of sorts. A sighting? I ain't no lexicon. The base access on the consoles around the port is free. They can tell you whatever you need to identify, be it ships or the local phenomena. Word of advice, you should be just staying clear of anything you cannot identify. Actually, that usually goes double for the things that you can. But his nose was already twitching. The fumes from the food could not be contained by the meal carrier, and got his interest. But it's nice of you to bring me my meal. About time too. So, what did you need again? He took the lid off as one of them slid it over. The sudden onslaught on their olfactory senses forced them to sit at the other end of the table. We saw something. Our instruments were on the fritz from interference, and too late did we realize that we were heading into a thicker part of the rings. But a ship turned up on our sensors, barely visible in the fog of the gas cloud we were caught in. We were not even sure if it was just a drifting wreck at first. There was no comms ID, no signal that we could detect at all. Of course, with all the interference, we were deaf and mostly blind, so we might have just not been able to receive it. But it seemed to move. In the end, it guided us out, saved us from being thrown deeper into a vortex that was forming. We just wanted to thank whoever was on that ship. But everyone just gave us weird stares or outright threatened us if we did not shut up after giving them the details. The bartender was the only one to give us any answer, as unhelpful as he was. He described it as a local legend. "Wait, you saw the Vengeance?" The old rat stopped. "Maybe," the captain shrugged. "Nobody gave us a straight answer." Rather than bother with the description again, they showed a picture on a datapad. You could see the Skerrit beginning to smile, and starting to stroke that fur tuft under their jaw that looked like a goatee. "Yup, old Ironclad class, repurposed by the Inner Orion Trading Company during the years of the Earth Civil War, and then repurposed again by the breakaway settlers. A ship that became an icon for many, but is first and foremost associated with the humans who retreated to Devil's Rock, an old exhausted mine turned into that hermit colony further into the ring. Originally still used fission reactors. The oversized, unsafe kind at that. That is why it has that long neck to distance the engine part from the habitation area. And the wings. The heat sinks at the front are really typical for the class. There is a hole where the old corporate insignia used to be. That is on purpose. The rest, not so much." "You seem to know a lot about it." The first officer leaned in, finally having adjusted to the smell as it stopped bothering him. "I saw one once, long ago. Some of the human settlers called it the Flying Dutchman. Some old story from their world. I don't know who or what the Dutch are, but they sound scary. As for the Vengeance itself, got quite a tale to tell. You sure you want to hear it? Get yourself some drinks and sit down. Or don't. I had enough mockery for a lifetime, and I will have none of it any more." They all agreed to listen. They were too invested at this point, even if the rodent seemed little more than a nutty homeless guy at this point. If nothing else, it was a good enough excuse to get drunk. "It was many cycles ago, during the quiet hours of Widow's Harbour, that the Vengeance left port. Its crew bid their ladies farewell before they unclamped from the docking ring, knowing that they were unlikely to come back. And sure enough, they floated into the mists of the rings, never to return. I feel like we are missing some context. Like, all of it?" the captain interjected, raising a hand. "Ah, tourists. Fine, if you insist to hear the boring parts." Seeing the old Skerrit roll his eyes was a performance on itself. Somehow he made a counter-circle with his head, creating a heavily exaggerated expression. "So this was after the Earth Civil War, so you see, during which various megacorps, like the Inner Orion Trading Company, could act without any oversight. They started their own little local conflicts at times. Turns out trade war is just as vicious as any other kind. But after the big one stopped, the newly created Greater Terran Union tried to rein them in. Only their bureaucrats did not have anywhere the aim of their gunners. The laws and regulations hurt the victims of the megacorps just as much, if not more, as the companies. Most affected were the settlers of the region, who very much broke away from their corporate overlords already, only for the government to come in and disarm them while there were a myriad of factions looking for retribution, blood of humans in particular, and pirate gangs happy to prey on newly disarmed freighters." "So, this human ship, the Vengeance?" "One of the last protectors of the settlers, quietly sent out by them before the GTU officials could come in and disarm them all. See, the Ironclad class was a heavily modular ship, originally intended for deep space exploration. It could operate alone and without support for years if needed. The IOTC repurposed a lot of them into warships. The settlers used them as a mix of both. There was a small fleet of them, protecting the settlers, their shipping, and even other travelers, who got into trouble of no fault of their own, despite demands of the GTU that they disarm. Some even say they were pirates themselves, but nothing could be farther from the truth. The saying that if you fly under the skull and crossbones around Lactaria, you will suffer a fate worse than death is thanks to them. But they were alone, unsupported, hunted by the government that did not care for this system or its human inhabitants. They merely saw the settlers as stubborn fools who were a diplomatic disaster waiting to happen, but could not forcibly remove them due to their own laws, so they just bled them dry. "I am not sure I want to hear more of this," one of the officers grimaced. He was always of the opinion that politics was something that happened to other people, and he wanted no part of it. This did not sound like a tale that would end well. The captain decided to interject. "So I guess the Vengeance was the last of them, still out there perhaps? You said you saw them once." He turned back to the rodent. "Aye, that I did. Many years ago. I served on a cargo freighter. We were jumped by pirates on the edge of the system. No gas clouds close enough to hide in. Too soon after returning to normal space for the hyperdrive to have recovered. Not that it was a top model in the first place. And you can't really fight when all you have are basic anti-meteor defenses. So we were sitting there waiting to be boarded. Then another ship appeared on our screens. He took a swig of his drink, for a bit of dramatic pause. The Vengeance was already a legend by then, one felled by treachery, taken out by their own. A trio of light cruisers, when one should have been enough, sent to take the last ironclad out. And supposedly they did, but only at the cost of their own lives, considering the wrecks that were recovered. So nobody would expect them, or just another ironclad class anyhow. They were supposedly all gone by then. Bet you saw one. We sure did! At first we thought it was just one more marauder, but the others certainly did not act like the stranger was their friend. Some of us hoped for rescue, but there was no answer to our hails. Then it just attacked the pirate fleet. It was terrifying. He paused once more, looking at his glass. Never saw anything fly like that or fight like that. Its guns were glowing due to the rapid fire he used to tear the pirates to shreds. Then its hull was, from the return fire that it seemed to just shrug off, or at least ignore like it was nothing. So, did you get a good look? The first officer asked. Not at first. We wanted to get out of there as soon as we could, but the pirates were all cut down and the stranger just sat there, drifting. We worked up just enough courage to fly close and see if there was anything left of our rescuers, so that we could return the favour. Koval and his officers now all leaned in, not saying a word. But the damage we saw made it clear that there was no ship anymore, just a wreck. Nothing could keep going with that many hulls, and the radiation readings made it clear that nothing alive could be rescued from there anymore, even if we had the heavily shielded drones needed. And here is the strangest part. Most of the damage we saw did not seem fresh. It looked like a really old wreck. Our readings indicated the same, but we saw them fight just minutes before. He shook his head. So we took our records. A lot of it turned to be unreadable later, thanks to the radiation. Many of our crew spent weeks in medical on anti-rad chems after that. Anyhow, there was nothing left to do but leave. And as we looked back, I swear we saw the ship fade into nothing, just before falling out of our sensor range. They left the rodent to enjoy the rest of his meal. They were not particularly interested about his other story, about he had mailed himself to the habitat's governor in a crate so he could do a surprise proposal in her quarters, after which he narrowly escaped being spaced. What do you think? I think we can forget thanking our saviors and should just be grateful. I mean the old rat story. Obviously exaggerated, but might not be entirely made up. He did let slip a few details that hint at a more plausible explanation. Koval answered nonchalantly. Which is? Our rescuers were probably human smugglers from that hermit colony of theirs. Obviously the Union and the pirates did not get all the ironclad-class ships. One or two might have been kept in operation in secret for nostalgia's sake, or simply for lack of a suitable replacement. They did not want to give themselves away, but were not as ruthless as to leave us to our fate, so they gutted us out without giving an ID signal. I think we should just shut up about it for their sake. Okay. They left it at that, but despite the insistence of the captain, the story of the Vengeance was passed on by the crew at other ports, if nothing else as an amusing little tale. The latest magnetic storm was picking up, a new vortex forming near the habitat, grounding everyone still in the docking rings until it would pass. The electric charge of the concentrated ring gases created a veritable light show of lightning. A few times that the gas mists lit up, the silhouette of a passing ship could be seen. Cross-shaped wings that were more holes than heat sinks by now. Beneath the cracked vices of his observation deck sat a mummified corpse, his face twisted into a permanent expression of sorrow. A skeletal hand, holding a nearly faded-away photo of a smiling woman with a child, with the words, "Wish you could be here," scribbled on the back.